If you're wondering why mortgage rates are still high and what happens next in the housing market, it all starts with the Federal Reserve and, more importantly, the SOMA. Today, we're breaking down the current size of the Fed open market account and what that means for interest rates, home affordability, and where housing could be headed for the rest of 2025. So let's dive in. SOMA stands for System Open Market Account. It's the portfolio the Fed uses to carry out monetary policies, mainly by buying or selling U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. What they do with this account directly affects interest rates and how easy or expensive it is to borrow money. As of May 2025, SOMA has decreased to around 7.1 trillion, down from a peak of about 9 trillion during the COVID era. But recently, the Feds have started to slow its pace of reduction. In April, they lowered the monthly Treasury redemption cap from 60 billion to 25 billion, and then again to 5 billion, signaling they are easing up on brakes. Let's take a second to explain what happened when the Feds buy bonds and why it matters. When the Feds buy Treasury or mortgage-backed securities, it injects money into the financial system. This increases demand for bonds, which pushes their prices up, and that makes yields go down, including mortgage rates. This is exactly what the Fed did during the pandemic. They bought massive amounts of bonds to drive borrowing costs down and support the economy. It worked. Mortgage rates dropped below 3%, and we saw a housing boom. But now, as they've been pulling back or even letting bonds roll off without reinvesting, the opposite is happening. Rates are climbing. That's tightening up financial conditions and cooling off housing markets. Now let's address the question that's been popping up a lot. Is the Fed still secretly buying bonds behind the scenes? While the Feds publicly scale back its purchases through quantitative tightening, some investors point to anomalies in the bond market, like sudden drops in yields or unexplained liquidity surges, as signs the Fed may be using indirect methods to support the market. Here's the truth. The Fed isn't technically secretly buying in the dark alley scenes, but it does not use several tools and programs that can influence the bond market without being labeled traditional bond buying. The standing repo facility, which pumps short-term liquidity into the system, the Fed's reinvestment of maturity securities, which continue in limited amounts, and sometimes foreign central banks or institution partners act in ways that mimic Fed interventions, creating confusion. The bottom line is, just because the Fed isn't directly buying like it did in 2020 doesn't mean it's totally off the market. These activities still influence rates, and that's what matters most to mortgage borrowers and home buyers. With less Fed demand in the home market, mortgage-backed securities have to be priced to be attractive private investor, which usually means higher yields and higher mortgage rates. Right now, that's why 30-year fixed rates are staying in the 6.5 to 7% range, even as inflation continues to cool. Higher rates equal fewer qualified buyers. We're seeing lower affordability, more buyers priced out, and many sellers hesitating to list and give up their low-rate mortgages. It's slowing sales activity and putting downward pressure on home price growth. Though inventory still remains tight in many markets like Naples and Fort Myers. If the Fed pauses SOMA drawdowns or even resumes risk or credit rate stress, we could see rates drop again. This could reignite housing demand, but if they keep letting bond roll off or even consider outright selling, rates could stay elevated or even raise further. The Fed's bond buying, or lack thereof it, is one of the most important forces in today's housing market. If you're thinking of buying or selling, understand SOMA and Fed policy gives you the edge. If this video helped you connect the dots, hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. I'll see you in the next one.